I'm Janine from Props by Posies, and my daughter Jessica and I own Poppies and Posies Photography, where we specialize in newborn and children's, and we also are owners of Props by Posies, which is a place where we sell props for newborns and children and prop patterns, so you can make your own pattern, your own props. We have an Etsy shop, Props by Posies, and we also have a website where you can purchase patterns from there, propsbyposies.com. So you can find those there. You probably already know that because you've purchased one. If you have not joined our Facebook group, be sure to do that. You have to have bought a pattern to join, so it's just people who are actually sewing our patterns. So please be sure to join that. It's Props by Posies Pattern VIP group. So hopefully you've done that. If you haven't, please go do that because it's a great support group and gives so much information, answers questions, and share, and you know, it's just a great support group. So be sure to join that if you haven't already. Okay, so today we are going to be making the Nora. So you have purchased the Nora, which is this one, and it has the ruffle back, and then ties down here. It has an elastic waistband, elastic legs, and the little straps. And here's another one that I've done in a print. There you go. It has a little bit of ruching in the front. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's look at what you're going to need in order to do this today. You'll need a sewing machine, of course, and then you're going to need some elastic. You will absolutely need some woven elastic. This elastic is braided elastic, and I use that usually for the waistband. It doesn't really matter. You can use the woven. If you can get a good look at that, the difference of that versus this. So this is woven. If you open it up, you can see the woven area. This is braided, and you can actually see the braid on that too. So when you're sewing elastic onto like a leg, where you're actually sewing on top of the elastic, the woven is the way to go. If you do it on the braided, it tends to keeps it stretched. It doesn't bounce back as well. So you will need some woven elastic, and you can use that also for the waistband. It doesn't matter. I just prefer to use the braided for the waistband. Okay, you'll need some fabric, a yard of fabric. You will need your pattern cut out. You will need some straight pins. I do have this, this is a quilting tape, it's called, and it's actually a stabilizing tape. It's a double-sided tape, and if you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm a big lover of this if you don't have a serger. But today we are going to be using a cotton, woven cotton, and so you don't need this tape. But if you're going to do it you can also do it in a stretch knit, and if you are going to do it in a stretch knit, you will want to get this if you do not have a serger, and I will put the link in the instructions for this tape as well. Now, if you have not purchased a pattern from me before, I just want to show you really quickly how this goes. This is what you've received, hopefully, and printed out. This tells you how they're supposed to be put together, and then what you do is just grab the two that go together, and you just butt up the edges of the paper like this, and you'll have a little gap there. That's what you were supposed to have, and just tape it there. You'll just have a little, what I mean by gap is a gap between on the solid line right there. So just like that, and then go ahead and cut it out. Okay, just want to make sure you're clear on that. And let's go ahead and, oh, I forgot, you'll also need, if you're dealing with a cotton, this is a fabulous blade to have. It's what do you call it? It's like a pinking shear, but it just cuts it so that it doesn't fray threads and threads. It's awesome. So you'll want to have one of those. If you don't, it's totally fine, but it just makes your life a lot easier. If you have pinking shears, you can certainly use pinking shears. You can use scissors to cut out if you want. I like to have a little pair of these little tiny scissors. It helps when you're cutting the strings off of the sewing machine. You'll need some way of measuring. I use this, and I also use this, and you may need that today. So just a ruler will be fine, but just something that you can measure with. Also, you're gonna need 2 strips of the woven elastic, about approximately 7 inches long. And then you're going to need one for the waistband, which is approximately 10 inches long. And it will be the, it can be either of these types of elastic, once again, okay? All right, let's grab our fabric and let's get going. Okay, I forgot to tell you also, you need to have 2 pieces of the woven elastic cut 4 inches long as well. And this, by the way, this is a 1/4 inch wide. 1/4 inch wide by 4 inches. You'll need 2 of those, and that's for the ruching. Let me show you what that's for. That's for this right here, the ruching on the front. Okay, so 2 4-inch pieces of the woven elastic. It's on both sides. Okay, I forgot to tell you that. So, all right, let's get started. I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way, and we'll get cutting. So you should have 3 pieces of your pattern, and we'll just go from there. So I'm going to take before I even cut out the pattern, I'm going to cut out my straps that we're going to need, which are just some 2.5-inch strips of fabric. So I'm going to lay my yard of fabric out like this, and before I do anything else, if you have a cutting mat like this, these are fabulous. If you don't worry about it. Just cut it with your scissors. Not a big deal. I didn't do rotary cutting for a long time, so I just barely got hooked on it and a couple years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this straight so I know that we're dealing with a straight edge here. And then, if you can see up close here how this, how it cuts. So if it's going to fray on just the tips of these little bumps. So it's really awesome for cotton, woven cotton. Okay, so you're going to need 2 strips of the 2.5 by 22 inches. So what I do is I just cut one of these. The fabric is doubled over, so I'll get 2 of them, and it's 23 inches, which is fine. Okay, so I'm going to go 2.5. Let's make sure this is on a line here. On the line there. Okay, now I'm going to go 2.5, which is right there. Make sure your fabric is lined up really well. Okay, and then we're going to do this. This one will be for the ruffles, strap ruffles, and just cut that bottom part off. And then you have to cut this up because we need 2 of them. So I just cut the fold, just barely, and then we have 2 pieces. Okay, and then we'll go a little bit farther on that in a minute with this little wedge piece. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut my other strips. I need another 2.5, and since that's a 1/2 inch right there, I can go straight to the next number and do this one. We'll need 2 of these cut because this one needs to be about 30 inches long, and we're only at 23. So we'll need 2 of these because we want them longer. And while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and do the other one, and then we'll cut it shorter, 30 inches. Okay, and once again, I'm going to cut, which you get one of the ends when you cut them shorter, but we'll wait on that. And then with the extra of that, I'm going to, let me just show you real quick. I'm going to go ahead and cut this to 30. Measure that. And I mean, you can give or take, and it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. So I'm just gonna cut that off and have this extra piece that we'll use in a second. And then put that one aside. Grab this other one that's long and do it to 30. Okay, and then I have my 2 extra pieces, which I only need a little bit of one, but okay, so there's our long ones. Keep those to the side, it's garbage. And then we need a 2.5 by 2.5. So I already know this is 2.5 wide, so I'm gonna go 2.5. And it doesn't, once again, you don't have to use your ruler if you don't want to, just a good square. Okay, and this is for the little loop that you loop the things through for the back. So this is what this is for, this little square, okay? So we'll put that with that, don't lose it. These things get lost because they're so little. Okay, now we have our little wedge here. And this is what this is for. And I like to have mine, and I don't know, this fabric, I'm just gonna have them going the same way. Okay, and what you're gonna do is line it up like this. You have on this wedge, you have a curved side. You can't really tell that it's curved, but it's curved. This is a straight side. You put the straight side up against the side here and hold it down, and you're gonna cut the curved side, okay? So you're just gonna, and you just want it tapered as much as possible. And I should have bought a new blade before I did this, and I didn't. I made a quilt with this, and I've done a lot of cutting with this, so. Okay, now what you're gonna do is do the same thing on this other side, but what I did yesterday is I wasn't paying attention, and I did it on the opposite side. You wanted to keep the taper on the same side. So you are going to want to, you have to think about it really hard. Yeah, you're gonna wanna turn this backwards so that so you're following this angle, and it's gonna come back around this way. So you're gonna turn it upside down, and you're gonna do the same thing. And just cut at this angle. It's hard to. And then I just kind of like it to just blend right in if possible. So there you go. So there's our two cut. These are for the ruffles because you want it to taper, as you can see on this. Use the one that's white so you can see a little bit better. See how it's tapered? So it starts out smaller and then gets bigger. And same with the front as well. Tapered. So that's why we taper it. Okay? Okay, now that we got those cut out, we have all of our extra little small pieces cut out. I think that's my small one. So we'll put those to the side, and we'll go ahead and cut out the actual little romper. So grab your fabric again, lay it out again, and if you're saving fabric, you'll want to open it up a little bit. And if you're using a cotton and it's quite wrinkled, and I have a little snag there, which I'm going to pay attention to that because I don't want to use that, but if you are using a cotton fabric, you will probably want to iron it before if it's wrinkly, just because if you have a wrinkle in it and you cut it out and then you're trying to match things up, it won't match up because it's not exactly right. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use this piece. This is a cut on the fold. So we are going to put it right up to the edge here. And I'm going to see, I don't know. Yeah, I do have enough. Okay, awesome. So I just want to make sure I have both layers. This isn't cut, you know, they don't cut things really straight at this store. So just make sure you're where you need to be, that there's both layers are right where you're going to cut. Okay, and you're going to want to come right up to the edge so that when you actually press on the edge, you don't have fabric sticking out. Okay, so you want, when you press it down, you don't want to see, you just barely want to see the fabric, just barely. Okay, and then hold it down and let's cut it out. It's on the fold. So when we open it up, it's going to be ginormous. It'll look like it'll fit me. But we cinch it all up with elastic, so. And stripes aren't the best to work with, but Jessica actually chose this fabric. She liked it, and we're going to use it. It's called a seersucker. If you don't know that, I don't know my fabrics very well, but I do know that this is a seersucker fabric, and it's great for summer. And since this is a summery outfit, that's what we went with. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It looks ginormous. It would fit me. Very big, but that's okay. That's what we're looking for. Cut off the extra here, and then we will go ahead and do the front. And the front, you don't need it quite so big, but this has this snag, so I'm going to make sure I'm not getting the snag in there. And this is cut on the fold as well, so you'll want to just match that up. Come down a little bit more even. Still making sure I don't get that snag. And because I'm working with stripes, I have to be a little bit more careful about how I'm lining it up. And that's just gonna be the nature of the fabric, so. Okay. Let's go, because that's gonna be the chest. Let's make sure it's, okay, that's a little better. Sorry, I just want to make sure because it's going to be the chest where everyone's going to see. But my lines are pretty well matched here. Okay, once again, up to the very end where you're not going to see very much fabric when you press down. And that's good. I think I'm right where I need to be. This pattern is for a 12 to 18 month, probably about almost 30 pounds would probably be the maximum. I will write that more in the instructions because I need to look at how much the kids weighed that we tried them on. So, but I think it's around 30 pounds. And then, so 12 to 18 months on this one. And because it has elastic in the legs and the waistband and everywhere, you'll have it'll fit more of a variety size baby, so that's awesome. Okay, so there you go. You have the front. I know it looks small. That's because the back looks so large is because it wraps around to the front to make that ruching right there. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is, this is half the battle, is ironing. We're gonna go iron first. We're gonna iron up all of our hems because we're dealing with a cotton. We don't use the tape. So we'll go downstairs to where I have my sewing machine set up and my ironing board, and we will, there's my square, don't forget your little square, and I'll meet you at the ironing board. Let's get started. Grab your bottom part, your back bottom, and we're just gonna turn up the leg here. We're gonna go 1/4 inch twice. So we're gonna go once, just a 1/4 inch. If you're not sure, I mean, I kind of eyeball it. It's not going to be, if it's a little tiny bit off, it's totally not going to make it or break it. Sometimes there are situations where it does, and sometimes there are when it doesn't. So this one isn't crucial, but you want it about a 1/4 inch. Okay, and you're going to just iron that down. And then once you have it all the way ironed down to the end, then we'll go ahead and flip it back around and do it again. Not back around, we'll just flip it up again, is what I mean. Okay, so there's, it's ironed once. We're gonna flip it again. That just gives it a little more nicer edge. In the past, I haven't always done that, but on this one, we're gonna do it. And I'm gonna have we're gonna put elastic over this and sew it at the same time, so. There's a couple ways, well, I'll just tell that one later, but there's a couple ways you can do that elastic. And I've done where you make a casing, and this one is just a little different where you can sew the woven elastic right to it, which is kind of fun. It's nice and easy. So I just wanted to give a variety of ways to do things. And then you can you know, do it to other patterns that we have as well. It's not gonna... This is where you're going to want to grab, if you have a longer ruler or a longer tape measure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to measure down 6 3/4. So 6 3/4 at the top. This is where my point is that I want to keep track of. And if you want to, which would be good, I'm going to grab a pin and I'm going to just put it there because that will help us know what we're doing. Help us know. So that's crooked. Okay, let's make sure we're at 6 3/4. Okay, and I'm going to take it down just another notch. It doesn't have to be quite as exact, but I like it to be very, very close. Okay, so 6 3/4. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna taper it. So up here, we want it to be 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so we're gonna start at the top, 1/4 of an inch. We're gonna try and keep it 1/4 of an inch as long as we can, and then we're gonna taper down. And as you can see, it kind of does a natural little taper when you're ironing. So I'm gonna keep that little taper and take it to that pin. Okay, so there you are. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna, in a cooler place, so hot. We're gonna roll it over again, 1/4 of an inch. And the same thing, we're gonna taper it again. This probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but it will at some point. So just do as I do, and you'll be glad that you did. Okay, same thing on this side. I'm gonna measure 6 3/4 and put my little pin there so I know where I'm going. And the same thing, I'm going to pull it over 1/4 of an inch about. And then as long as we can keep it 1/4 of an inch, and then just taper at the end. And I'm sure once again, if I was a real designer, that there would be a way to do that that's better than this, but I couldn't wrap my head around it, so this is how we do it. And it works perfectly, so I might not want to say that because it might give me problems today, but there we go. Okay, and then we're going to take the top, we're going to do the same thing, just 1/4 inch down and 1/4 inch down. And then all this will be like just ready to just sew, and you don't have to worry about pinning or all that. It's just right where it needs to be. There's once and there's twice. Doing it twice, it just gives it a little bit more finished look. And on these too, I want to push in just a smidge on this so that it's not sticking, the little extra fabric isn't sticking out on the edge, on the end. So be careful of that. Oh, I'm ironing my tape measure. It's not good. Okay, we're going to do it again here. Once again, folding that little extra fabric in a little bit at the end. Okay, did I do that over twice? I did. Okay, just checking everything out. Okay, now we have this little square piece. Now what I do on this is I fold it over approximately as much as how wide I want the thing. So the little tab or the little loop that we're making. And I'd say probably about, let's go like that so you can see a little bit better. Yeah, it's about 3/4, little less than that maybe. About like that. I'm gonna fold it over again. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this piece, well, let's go back. So I fold it over once. I'm going to take this other side and fold it over just a little bit, not quite as much, just a little bit. So it's going to give it a more finished edge on the other side. Okay, and then I'm going to fold it again like that. Actually, I think I'm going to go less than that. So go like that. So this will be the outside of the little loop. Okay, and then I'm going to, on this one, it'll be sewn like this, and you won't see the raw edges. It's going to be sewn like that onto the back of the thing. Okay. Oh, this is the most time-consuming part. Well, almost. The gathering of the ruffles is pretty time-consuming as well. But then this is the ruffle. Now remember, the part that goes down, this is your sleeve edge. So this is the edge that you want to be folding down. So once again, you're going to go 1/4 of an inch. All the way around, and then you're going to do it again. It's nice if you can keep your fingers as far away from the steam as possible. tapered down. Follow the shape. It's hot. And then do it again. So this is going to be pretty small right here. This is the end, and you can see how that makes it nice and easy to have it tapered. And if you want to do yours smaller, not quite as wide, you can. If you want to do it larger, you can on the ruffle. This is just what I prefer and works for me. Okay. That's done twice. This is longer. This is the 30-inch ones. And this one is, what we're going to do is we're going to fold up one part, we're going to fold up the other part, and we're going to meet in the middle. Ideally, it's nice if you can have a small, tiny little gap about like that in between them. It's not huge, but it's just a little tiny gap there. And just try to get it as good as possible. I don't know why that's going to be a muscle today. And so you can kind of just go down farther from the steam and do it. Just try as best you can. We're going to fold it over again in half when we're done, but just try your best to get it pretty even. That's kind of important. You can do the gap a little bit wider, and then as you iron, I think it kind of pushes it together, so it's not quite as gappy, but okay, here we are at the sewing machine. I'm going to start with the chest. I'm going to go ahead and sew down that top chest piece. I'm not worried about the size right now because that's going to be very last. We're going to do that when we add the ruffle. So what I'm going to do is just put I use the inside left part of my foot as my guide, and I have the ability to move my needle over. And so I'm going to move that over twice because I like it really close to the edge. Okay, just enough that I'm not going to miss it if it's not perfectly straight. You know, straight stitch, I use a straight stitch on this whole romper except for the crotch, and then I do a zigzag on the crotch just because it gets a lot of stretching and that. But with all the elastic we're using on this one, we don't need to use a zigzag. So I'm just straight stitching all the way across the chest here. Make sure that you have your the edge double folded when you come to the edge. And I am going to just pull this out a little bit. I don't like that edge to show on the outside edge, so I'm going to pull it in just a smidge. Back stitch and forward stitch again. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Completely done. My scissors. Just cut that thread. And I like to keep my thread cut the whole time because it lessens the chaos when you're sewing to not have the threads all over. Okay, that one we can put aside. The legs, we're not gonna sew those up either right now. We're gonna do that when we put the elastic on. So we will leave that. I'm gonna jump to the waistband. And so once again, as I said, we're going to go really close to this edge. So I'm going to once again use that inside edge of my foot, inside left edge. And you don't need to go back and forth on this one, and because it's going to be in a seam, so you don't have to. You can if you want, you don't have to. Okay, so we're just going to take that right along the edge there. And I'm not pulling on the back, I'm just guiding, and then the front, I'm just making sure it's not going to be pushing and gaping. It will push a little bit because we're not using a walking foot, but it will be a little amount that is doable. A walking foot is great for stretch knits because it doesn't make it wave either. It's really great to keep it where it needs to be. And see, it pushed a little bit of the fabric away, so just clip it off. Okay, now for the next row of stitches. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and use this edge as my guide, and I'm going to move my needle back to, I just went a little bit over from, there's the center. That would be a really small, that would be a little too small. So I'm going to move my needle over a couple to give it a little bit more room. And I'm going to use this as my guide along this edge. And then as you go through, you can always stop and look and go, oh, yep, that's big enough. And I could have done it even a little bit smaller, but I'm going to leave it at that. This will be a little tiny ruffle at the top. Yeah, I should have done it just a smidge smaller. I moved my needle over one too many, but that's okay. I'm not going to pick it out or unpick it. Okay, then you're going to grab your 10-inch piece of, actually before we grab your elastic, which you'll need in a minute, I'm going to, yeah, I did that a little bit too wide, darn it. I wish I would have gone a little bit closer. I could have gone quite a bit closer. I don't know if you can see, can you see the thread, the stitching on there? So there's there, and I'm going to put the elastic right through there. But before I do that, I'm going to grab my little loop that I ironed. It's ironed and it's ready to go. I'm just going to sew it right along this line right here where it comes together, just to give it a more finished look. And I'm going to do it really close to that edge if I can. It's tricky because it's little, but it's doable. And I'm going to use the inside of my right side of my foot as my guide on this. And pull it through. Why isn't it pulling? Okay, let's get more on it. Okay, there we go. And just make sure it's pretty even there. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew it onto here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it up. So actually first thing we need to do is find the middle. So let's put these together, find the middle, put a little pin there so we know where it's at. And then we'll do it over that. Okay, so we're going to turn this so that it's facing up like this. And you can't do it inside the casing that you just made, or your thread won't go through, your elastic won't go through it. So you're going to need to, that's another reason it would be nice to do it a little bit bigger, have a little more space up here. But I messed that up. So I'm going to just place it right here, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm sewing right on this top part to sew that into place. right on the top part. And that's where I'm going to sew. I'm going to have it on the middle so I know where the needle's going to go, right where that red line is. So I can come down just a little bit. And I'm going to grab this needle out, the pin, I mean. And then we're just going to go back and forth. I'm just going to do a straight stitch up and a straight stitch back and then back up again, just to make sure it's on there good, because it's going to get a little tugging from having the straps tied right there. Okay, so just make sure it's really good and secure. Then I'm going to come down, and I'm going to come down past that casing right there, so that I'm not getting inside the casing at all. Okay, now here you can either you can just go like this and move that to the side, or if you wanted to make it easier, you can just sew it right on, sorry, hang on, let me grab it. Okay, can't do two things at once. Can't talk and grab. Okay, and then you could just go right there and sew it right across there. Because this fabric is so thick, so thin, the seersucker is so thin, and it's gonna get some tugging here, and it might cause a little problem. So I would take a little patch of fabric, and of this kind of fabric, and just put another patch right on the back, just a little circle or square right there to give it a little bit more support. But since I don't have that with me at the moment, I'm gonna go ahead and just do it, and then I'll fix that later. Okay, and make sure it's not pulling down. And I'm going to slide that in. And I'm gonna use the inside edge right here as my guide. And I need my threads to pull because it's really thick, and I probably need to release my foot so it's not quite so tight down there, so it'll move. So the pressure foot, I just lifted it just a smidge. Up, and then back, and then up again. And if you feel like you need to do more than that, feel free. Okay, so now we have our little loop on. That's what our ties are gonna be. And make sure you don't snip your fabric. Okay, this is what it looks like. It's a little crooked, but no one will ever know. Okay, now grab your 10-inch elastic, thread it through your threader, or put a safety pin on the end. And we're gonna just feed it through. And there should be plenty of room because I left quite the big space there. Just pull that gently over so it doesn't rip or pull. And then be careful as you're feeding it through. When I get to the end right there, I like to sew it into place. Just a straight stitch over it on the very end. I just go up and back a couple times to secure it. And my machine's been acting up, so hope it bears with me for the rest of the time. I need to get it serviced. You should have your sewing machine serviced every year, and I haven't done it for a long, long time. So it's time. Pull that all the way through. And you don't have to worry about that coming through because we just secured it really well. And I like to, it's really hard to do, but I like to leave this not gathered quite so much because we're going to be working with this part on the, when we sew it to the top, to the front. So there it is. I like to have this about 9 inches when it's gathered. So about that. And so I will, a little less than 9, I think, about 9.5. And then I will straight stitch that to there again. And this one's easy to keep it smooth, but this first part is difficult, so you just have to kind of move that fabric. Okay, I'm gonna go up and back here. Again, just to secure it in place. And then you don't have to worry about it the whole rest of the time. And then you just cut off that extra elastic. I just like to have some to work with, so I cut it a little bit bigger than it needs to be. And then, okay, so there we are. There's the back. Cute. Let's tell it's coming together. And then after doing that, we are going to go ahead and sew it to the sides are going to be sewn together right here. And so take the right sides together. So this is the right side, which doesn't, this is the wrong side. This is the right side. Put that right sides together. This is the right side because it has the loop on it. So I'm putting right sides together. And I'm going to just match it up here. And we're going to do a large seam here. We're going to do a 3/4 inch seam. So how you can tell that is it should be about right where this comes together right there. So what you'll want to do is just match it up the best that you can. And see how this is going to be kind of pulled in because of the elastic, so you want to make sure that you kind of get that pulled out. Okay. And you're going to want to make sure, this is a lot of work to do, so what you may want to do is just pin so that you know that this is doubled over like we ironed it, and this is doubled over like we ironed it. And you're going to want that to be right on. So I'm going to pin just for good measure right here, and I want it to be a little bit more than that, so because it's a 3/4 inch. Let me grab with those together, I want this to be where they meet. I want it to be 3/4 inch. So I'm going to place my thing. So where these meet, it needs to be, and you can just move it down. If you move the front part down, it will give you what you want. So that makes sense, I hope. So, oh, by the way, sorry, move it up, not down, up. Okay, so that's about where this meets, let me see, where this meets right here, you want it to be about 1/4 inch from this straight edge, which is about where it is right there. So I'm going to pin it right there, just for good measure to keep it there. And then all the way up there and pin. Okay. And I'm going to start right here, and this will tell us, like I know that my 3/4 inch is right where between the 15 and the 20 about. So actually it's more like 20 probably, but I do more like maybe 5/8 there, but I take it to the 20. Okay, so about 3/4 inch. You don't have to be right on, but you need it to be you need it to be wide. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and straight stitch here, back stitch. I'm just gonna keep mine between my 15 and 20 on the guide there. And let's look and see. So yeah, it's 3/4 inch right there. So that's what I'm doing, 3/4 inch. All the way down. And I'm gonna stretch that as flat as I can, just because I don't like it to be all bunched up when you're sewing it together. And then I'm gonna go over that elastic. I'm gonna back stitch over it again, and then just up to the top, back stitch again. Okay. Now let's go ahead on this one and do the ruching. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side. I'll probably want to show you that beginning again because it's confusing. Okay, so here we have it. So if you turn it around, this is what it looks like. So you've got that's how it looks. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to work with this seam that we just did. You can cut off this extra right here. Just cut that extra fabric and grab your 4-inch elastic that you cut. So make sure this is your 4-inch. This is the 4-inch. And what you do is the seam that you just sewed, you are going to place it. I want to show you on this side because it's right under this casing right here. Okay, that's where I'm going to go, but I like to do it with my fabric on this side, so I'm going to just make sure it's right under the casing, and you're going to go right over the stitch you just made. So you're going to under the casing, about right there, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to stitch it into place with it. Actually, this is a zigzag stitch right here. So I lied. So I do the crotch and then the ruching is zigzag. So right under the casing, you're going to stick it in there, and it's right over the stitch you just made. So you're going to just go, that's going to be the middle, is right where your stitching is. So I'm going to just, I'm not pulling or anything. I'm just stitching, back stitching to hold it into place right there at the beginning. And then now that I know that it's secure and on there, now I can pull pretty tight. And I know this is hard to see because of the fact I'm using white thread and all that. My thread is, my stitch is right here. Looks like I didn't pull my fabric over enough, which is weird. But I'm just gonna pull it tight like that. I'm gonna hold it with my thumb, and you're gonna have to kind of tug a little bit on this back side in order to get it to go through, because you're pulling this way, so you need to pull the other way as well. So we're gonna zigzag, just keep that just going right down the middle. This red just going right down the middle. Stop, pull it again. And once again, you're still going right over the middle of that stitch. It doesn't have to be exact, and pull it tight. And I'm gonna make sure it's tight here. And I'm gonna stop right before the leg right here. Pulling it tight. And then I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna pull it here this way, and I'm gonna stop right there. Because we're gonna have elastic to deal with going around the leg. So you wanna stop before you get to that folded up leg hem. Cut the extra off. Let me show you the ruching. Whoops. And that's what it looks like. Isn't that cute? So you got the ruching. So it's going to come around right to the front and be on the front. I don't know if you can tell like that. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the other side. Let me see if I can do it a little bit smoother this time, not be so confusing doing it. So we're going to go right sides together again. Let me cut this extra thread that I have hanging out everywhere. I didn't cut. Okay, right sides together again, so just the way it was. And once again, you're going to want to match it up here, and where you're matching it up and where this goes up here. So about where this meets, you want it to be 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's about right where it is. So right where it's folded. So go ahead, match up your edges, and do better than I did on the other one. I don't know why that was so bad, but I'm gonna make sure that these are doubled over the way that it should be. And then bring it to the edge. Okay. Once again, I'm going to want to have it be about between the 20 and between the 15 and the 20 on my little plate here. And to get there, that's right where it needs to be, is right there. But I want this over, matching up better than I did last time. Okay. And everything's doubled over like it's supposed to be. Okay. Hold on to your threads. and I didn't, so it's, I'm not sure if that worked or not. We'll see. Okay, and then once, make sure you're lined up again. Keep it going. Don't want to go. And I'm zigzagging because I didn't put it back to straight stitch. Don't do that. You want a straight stitch here. It's not going to matter that much, but it's just better to do that. So, okay, and we are going to make sure that's doubled at the top there too. Make sure that's lined up the best we can. Okay. And then over the elastic, I'm just going to double, just to give it a little bit more stability. I backstitched over the elastic part. Okay. Okay, now we have this one done. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to grab your second 4-inch elastic, make sure it's the 4-inch, and we're going to start underneath. And this one will be easier to see. We're going to start underneath the casing here, just like that. We're going to zigzag, and we're going to tack it into place first. Grab your threads to help you feed it through. There it is. Okay, and then we're going to just stitch it into place, a couple forward, a couple backwards, and then forward again. Okay. Now you take your elastic and you're going to stretch it pretty tight, and you're going to go right down that seam you just made, and this red line, your guide, is going to go right down the middle. Stop and adjust again, stretch tightly. And then again, you're going to stop right before that leg. Is that doubled over? It was, but this is, I don't know what happened there. I'm going to have to tweak that a little bit, I guess. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. Back stitch, forward stitch. And then cut off the extra here. And I'll show you what I noticed as I was sewing. That when I sewed this together, it had come out for some reason. So this is supposed to be doubled over, and it was doubled over right here, but so that's gonna have to be tweaked just a little bit, but it'll be fine when we do the elastic over it. Okay, so I'm not gonna stress about it too much. Here's the ruching. I want to show you what it looks like now that you're done. And then maybe, so you can flip it back out, see how it looks. There's the back, and there's the front. So it's ruched. There's the ruching. Okay, now we're going to do the elastic on the legs, and nice that we have a full round piece to go. I'm going to cut this extra fabric right here, just get it out of the way so we're not dealing with so much. I don't know where that went. I just don't want to sew it back to my, there it is, back to my romper. Okay, so we are going to turn it back, right side out, right side in, inside out, and we are going to, I forgot what I was doing. Oh, we're doing the elastic on the legs. Okay, so we're gonna doubled over. Now, in the past, what I've done is I've gone ahead and sewed these down and then put the elastic on over it. But then you have two seam lines, and I don't like that. So I'm going to do it all at once, and I hope that works really well for me. So I'm going to start a little bit up from the crotch because I don't want the elastic to be all in the crotch. It's already bunchy enough that you don't need it to be there. So I'm just going to put it a little bit up, about a ½ inch. Okay, and I'm going to place the elastic right so that this edge, this folded over edge, is right in the middle of my elastic. and I'm going to zigzag that into place just like I did the ruching. So I'm going to tack it into place, zigzag front and back just to get it into place, and then I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull, and I'm going to be a little bit more meticulous about this one because I want to make sure that I'm catching this into the elastic. So you're going to leave a little bit here that gives you a little bit of a ruffle on the leg, and you're going to want to still follow that curve. So make sure you're following it. Okay, and you're going to need, once again, to pull from the back side because you are pulling from the front side. So and then you're going to pull it tight again, following that curve still, keeping it in the middle of that seam the best you can. This is your 7-inch piece that you cut. Should be about 7 inches. And this is where I have that weird problem, so I'll address that in a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that this is doubled over here, and I'll just fold this this ruching part. I'll just fold down the seam, fold it down, and it's going to be just fine. Okay, and I'm just going to keep going right around this seam and leg hole here. Pull that up just a little bit right there. Gotta pull from the back or it doesn't work. And once again, we're going to stop right before the crotch, so don't forget to do that. And you will have a little bit left over. Okay. I'm going to stop about right there, where my finger is. And I'm going to back stitch, forward stitch again, make sure it's good in place. And then you can cut off that extra. Let's cut the thread off, and then cut the extra. Make sure you don't snip your fabric. Okay, and that went on the ground. Okay, so there's one leg. And then when we put the crotch together, it will look like that. Okay. All right, let's do the other one. I won't make you watch me do the other one. I'll just do it and I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. We have both the legs done. This is the crotch right here, the two crotch pieces, and you can see I have both legs done. So with the right side still together, I'm going to match up both crotch edges, just like that. And I'm going to match this one up, and it's just so, I'm just going to sew I'm going to zigzag. And about a 1/4 inch seam. You can go quarter to a half, whichever you like. And I'm gonna go just about to the, I'm gonna do a little more than a 1/4 inch just because I can go right up to that elastic there. Match up this end and make sure you're lined up pretty good here. Okay, and then you can pin it if you want to. I just like to hold it here. All right. crotch is done. That's what it looks like. Done. And let's turn it the other way and see where we're at. So there's the ruching is done, the legs are done, and all we have to do are the straps, the ruffles and the straps. Okay, so that's where we're at. So let's set that aside for a minute, and let's grab the ruffle pieces. These are the ones that taper. First thing I'm going to do is just hem it. I'm just going to hem that side that we pressed down. I'm going to go ahead and just sew that straight stitch, so change it back to a straight stitch. I'm just going to straight stitch that back into place. And once again, I like, not back into place, and I like to use that inside left part of the foot as my guide, and I'm going to move my needle over twice. And sew that into place. I'm just using this edge along the inside left edge of my foot. I'm just guiding it. I'm not pulling. I'm just kind of using the back to kind of guide a little bit. And sometimes that little hem will want to grow on you a little bit, or kind of pucker up. Just keep working with it and making it behave. It's going to be ruffled up anyway, so you won't be able to tell, but some fabrics are better than others, and some are worse. So see, I can tell right here I'm going to have a little bit of so I'm going to just grab a pin, and I'm just going to kind of work it in a little bit. And don't put a needle in your mouth, a pin in your mouth. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm just going to show you on this one, and then I will do the other one not on camera. So now that I have this one done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to gather it. Okay, so I'll do the other one separately. And then, okay, so to gather, if you have a serger and can know how to gather on your serger, there is a great video in our Facebook group that shows you how to serge how to gather with a serger. If you have a brother serger, and I do have a brother serger, and I did it that way, and it works great. But because everybody doesn't have a serger, I'm going to go ahead and just do it manually. And so what you want to do is bring your stitch to the longest stitch that you have. Mine is right here, and I just go all the way up to a 5. That's the longest stitch I have, which is not super long, but we're just going to do a gathering stitch here. And I like to do it not quite a 1/4 of an inch, because the 1/4 inch is about where I'm going to sew later. So you don't want to back stitch on this because you won't be able to pull the strings to gather it. So just start sewing, and you can tell as it advances, it's going pretty. The stitches are pretty big, and I'll show you when we're done how those look. So I'm just try to keep my fabric about the middle of this little foot, the right side of the foot there. And you just straight stitch that. You can do 2 if you want. This is such a skinny little thing. I'm just doing 1. You can certainly do 2 runs if you'd like. It kind of makes it easier it's easier to gather at a more even pace, I guess. Not pace. It just helps it be more even. It's easier to go back and forth. So you want to keep a little bit of a end on it so that you can pull it. Okay, and there's a little bit of an end. I'm going to do a little pulling from each end. But what you do is you just grab one of these threads. So just the top one or the bottom one, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to do the top to me. And I'm just going to start pulling. And as you see, let me show you how more. So this white on white wasn't a very good idea, but you can see how big the threads are, I think, the stitching. Okay, and then you're just going to pull. Start pulling, and you move it towards the middle. Pull again, see how it gathers it up, and then just smooth it all out. And keep doing that until, what we want to do is we want to get it to about 15 inches long once it's gathered. That's kind of the perfect length I have found. Now I'm about halfway through. I'm going to go to this other end, and I'm going to grab this end. Then you just don't have to pull through quite so much. It's just Easier to do a little bit on this side, a little bit on the other side. And you just keep going. Okay, and then what I need to do, this looks about right to me. Where's my, I should get my tape measure out here. And I'm just gonna lay this here and so that I can know where 15 inches is and see where we're at. Don't want it to get away from me. Okay. Alrighty here. So let's measure and see where we're at. So, so we're at 13 right now. So I just need to loosen it a little bit. I did a little bit too much. And then once you get it to where you want, you kind of want to just even it out and make sure it's, you know, that it's evenly done. So there's one, I'm at 14, so a little bit more. And it really doesn't matter. It's just where it's going to end on the back. And I did it so many times that I kind of got a good number that I knew was what I like. And that's about 15 right there. So, and it's pretty even. So I'm going to go with it. Okay. And let's go. So grab your casing that you did. And you're going to open it up. And you are going to grab your romper. And what we're going to do, this is kind of a tricky part. So what we're going to do is the opening of this strap is going to go towards the outside because that's where the lace is going to go in. Okay. So how we're going to start is, this is going to be hard to show. Okay. So this is how I have my romper in my hand. So I have the, it's right side out. I have the back elasticy part on my right hand and this on my left. So this is the bib. Okay. I'm going to open this up a little bit. And this large seam that we did, sewing the sides together, I'm going to place this casing right there. And I want to go below this elastic casing. I want to go below that. And I'm just going to stitch it right into place, just right here on this seam. It's not going to show through the other side. I'm going to do it on this seam. This is the side seam. And I'm just going to sew it right on this edge. So I want this fold to be right by where we sewed it. So right there. Okay. And I'm just going to sew it right to this seam. Okay. Just straight stitch it across just to have it in place. And right below the elastic. Pull that up, and I'm just going to straight stitch across, just down, I mean. And I'm going to back stitch, and then forward stitch. And I didn't take it off of my largest stitch, so I'm going to do it again. Backwards, forwards. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so now I have it kind of attached to the bottom part anyway, and then we'll attach it to the chest. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so this is going to, just so you have an idea of what we're doing, this is going to come over and hide that, and you won't really know where that started and stopped. So it's going to be like this, and see how good that looks. See if I can get it so that I can show you. Okay. So now we're going to start with we're going to put the ruffle in and start right here. We're going to start putting the ruffle in and we're going to pin it there. So my ruffle is right here, and you want to make sure that you are doing the ruffle going towards the outside of the outfit, and that you're not doing it with the hemmed part facing up. You want the hemmed part facing down, okay? So just pay attention to what you're doing. I can cut off these extra strings because I don't need them anymore. I've gathered what I want. And then, so I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to place this in the edge down, and we're going to capture that right inside. We're going to capture the part that we've, just like that, fold it over. So that's what it looks like, okay? And I'm going to pull this down as much as I can because I want it to be like that. You know, I want it to be down to where it starts. So I'm going to open this up, get it down there as far as I can, and then I'm going to pin it there. So open that, close it, pin it. Okay, so, and I'm going to pin, so my pin thing, my little balls are on the outside, okay? Now, this is the trick. Why we did it at tapered is so that we can line it up. I gotta get these out. Ugh. Okay, so we can line it up right along the edge. So I'm doing the casing right here, putting the gathered ruffle in the casing, and then I'm gonna pull it over, and I'm gonna line it up right on the, so it's so hard to explain. So this folded part, and it's double folded, we have to remember it's double folded. The double folded part is right on this top edge as well. So we're gonna bring this, because it's tapered, should work fairly good. And I'm gonna do it to about right there. And you can open that a little bit more if it doesn't match up exactly right, but it should match pretty good. Okay, so that's gonna be right on the edge. Hope that makes sense. Let me show you again. So it's gonna be going along this like that. Let me pin it and show you. Pin it like this for a minute. Okay, so this is going to, so basically without the ruffle in it, this is going to run just right along the side of this, just like this. But the ruffle is going to be inside, right in there. Okay. So open it again, and I just do a little bit at a time. I just open it up, put the ruffle in, kind of make sure it's folded there, and towards, you can push this down towards the middle, fold that back up, and then bring this and match it up. You're matched up right there. Because there's such a thin, I'm gonna do my pins this way. And then you just keep doing that along until the ruffle ends, and then you don't have to pin anymore if you don't want to, because I just hold the rest when I sew. Don't have to have it pinned. So fit that in there again, fold it over, match it up. Okay, there's the end right there. Okay, and then continue on. You'll want to pin the ruffle the rest of the way on the casing, and then when it ends, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And I'm just pin those the wrong way, I believe, because I'm going to want to stitch it this way. I'm going to want to stitch it, so I'm going to flip these so that, why did I do that? That's weird. I am not with it today. Let's get that down inside a little bit more. And then you want the ball on the outside, I mean at the bottom. I think that's right. Okay, we'll make it be right. Okay, and then we'll just keep going this way. We're almost to the end here. It's hard to, it's like left-handed doing it that way. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure that it's just how I want it, exactly how I want it. I'm gonna make sure this, okay, this is gonna go, when we're done too, we're gonna do a little stitch right here just to stitch it to there, stitch it down right there. But so I just wanna make sure I have it where I have it. It's where it's supposed to be. And I'm gonna pull that over just a smidge more and pin it so that that edge matches up really well. Okay, and then just make sure this is all along that edge, which is pretty good. And we're going to just sew up along the... Okay. You want to sew from this side because this is the front, and you want to make sure that you're doing a nice straight line. That's why you want to have it as matched up as good as you can on this underside, because you're not going to be able to see it as you're sewing. Okay, so make sure it's as good as you can get it. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. And let's sew it on. Because this is the side that catches everything. So you want to do this side first. So I have a little sewing until right there, and I'm like, why am I doing that side? So that's why that's sewn. Don't be confused by that. We're starting on this side, and you want to use that inside edge of the left side of the foot, and then I moved my needle over twice just to get a nice close seam to the edge. Okay, so I'm gonna go forward, back stitch, and then go forward again. And just making sure that I have everything, I can kind of see through this a little bit. I can see where my edge is, so I'm gonna try and keep that where it needs to be. So this edge is on the inside of this left part of the foot. And because I can see through a little bit, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm grabbing that and having it as close as I can to matching exactly the underneath. But and you're kind of gonna try to keep the fabric a little taut, so a little pulled a little bit tight, so that it's not making little things like that right there. You can just kind of use a pin to feed things through if you need to, which is really helpful, so you're not sticking your hands in there and getting the needle in your finger. And just kind of keep that little ruffle where it needs to be as well as you're sewing, just to... If you do your pin enough to the other side, you can leave it there, but pull that out a little too far, I think. I pulled it totally out. That's good. So I'm just going to hold it there as I sew. Okay, and then once you get through past the ruffle, you just continue to sew that together. And this is what makes your strap that ties, goes through that loop and ties. forgot to tell you, when you get to the end, this is how I do it. You can iron it in the beginning if you want to. I just open it up when I get almost to the end, fold it in, and then fold it back the way that it is supposed to be. And then fold it together again. Whoopsie. Make sure that fabric is down and so you don't see it at the top. Hold that together. Our dog is making snoring noises as we're sewing. Okay. Just use my pen to even it out a little bit, I think. I don't know if that's... It's not as good as I would like it, but it's gonna work. No one's gonna see that end tie anyway. Back stitch. Okay. Okay, now this is what it looks like. And I don't have this side done. So now I go back and I, did that not, it didn't grab it. What the heck? Okay, so let's go back and let's sew this other side. And then we'll fix what's not down. And since I already started sewing down some of this side, I'm gonna start up in here. But that's funny that it didn't catch. It was too close to the edge, I guess. So I'm making sure that it's matching up right now. And now I'm gonna do this side. I'm gonna go over. I'm using this inside edge as my guide, and I'm gonna back stitch right here because I started in the middle there. Okay, I want to make sure I'm where I need to be. Okay, so far so good. Okay, and then I'm going to keep sewing to finish up that little other edge so they look the same. Okay, that's funny. This is about the 5th time that I've made this outfit, and it's never done that before, but of course on the tutorial it's going to do that. So let me see what I need to do to fix it. I will show you what it did, because it could happen to you as well. You never know what's going to happen when you're sewing. Okay, so that's just not connected right there. So basically, the best thing to do on that, I don't know why it didn't catch it. I just barely must have missed it. So it looks like it's over enough that it should have caught it. So I don't know. So I'm gonna try it again, going over on top, because I wanna be able to see my what I'm sewing and hope that it's gonna catch it this time. I mean, it should be catching it. So maybe what I'll do, no, it looks like it should. Okay. You just don't want to have two seams right there. It might look a little funny. So let's just see what happens. So it's this outside seam that's not catching it. And if it doesn't catch it, maybe I'll just have to whip stitch it. Let's see. I'm going to try and stay right on that seam that I did before. Seems like it's going to catch it, but we'll see. To right there. Make sure it's going over a little bit. That looks like it's pulling away, maybe. Oh, dearie. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna back stitch a little bit. See what happens. And it did catch it this time, it looks like. It did catch it. So I don't know why it didn't catch it that first time. Maybe I was just a little bit too close. So maybe that's a lesson learned. Don't do it quite so close to the edge. Maybe go in just a little bit more. But I have to match it on the other side. So I'm going to do the same thing again. But anyway, there you go. There it is. All right. And I will go ahead and do the other side and I will be right back. Okay, so here we are. I have both straps done. I wanted to show you on this one. So this is the one I did first on camera, and I had the stitching really close to the edges, all the way up. And this one, I forgot to move my needle over, and it did it a little bit more in. And personally, I mean, this is all your own, you know, everyone's own opinion. I like the one I like this one better. But I just want to show you the difference. Since I made the mistake, I just thought I might as well show you what it looks like. So if you don't want to go quite that close to the edge, that's what it looks like. Okay, so now the very last thing that I do is I take this little, you know, where it comes over right here, and I just do a little stitch just right there, just to attack it so that it's not hanging out in the wind there. So I just come here. And I like to pull that a little taut right there because it's elastic. And it's hard to see. I'm just gonna sew it right there. I'm just gonna tack like a couple little stitches, just like 3 little stitches. I'm just gonna go stitch, back stitch. It's just a few little stitches like that. And I'll show you what that does. Okay, so there, it just tacks it so that it's not like this, just, you know, open and that. So I'm gonna pull this over, pull this a little bit, and I'm just gonna go tack, tack, tack right there. Just make sure it's kind of straight, you know, it's not heading downwards or anything. And then do a few straight stitches up, straight stitches back, straight stitches up. Oh my God. All right, we are done. And I just want to show you what it looks like when it's tied up back. So this is what it looks like from the front. It's hard to tell with the ruching. It's hard, it doesn't want to be in place, but there's that. And then when you flip it over, I take this one on my left and I put it through this way, through the little loop we made. And I take this other one and go through this way. And tie in a bow. So there's the back. Ta-da! And the front. Okay, so here we are. It's finished. This is what it looks like. And I think it turned out really cute. I hope you enjoyed it. This was a little bit harder pattern compared to our other patterns, and it was a little longer tutorial. So it's just the way it goes when you're dealing with this ruffling and that, it just takes a little bit longer. So I hope you enjoyed it, and the more you do it, the quicker you'll get and the easier it'll be. So keep sewing, keep trying. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do, these are private videos because you have to have a link to get to these. You have to have a purchase in order to get to it. So we do other public videos, just little tips and tricks and stuff. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Make sure you join our Facebook group because we'd love to have you there if you're not there already. And go buy another pattern.